Thank you very much, Rajesh, and welcome to all of you to the UNESCO House. This is the UNESCO House, but first and foremost, it is your house, and we're very happy to have you here, hosted in what we call the Elephant Room, to give it a little bit of local color. So I hope that you will enjoy the discussions today. As Rajesh has said, unfortunately, it so happens that we will have to bail out very early because Doordarshan is not just filming us. Doordarshan has entrusted UNESCO with the preparation of a one-hour television program on Gandhi that I will be co-hosting, so we have to leave immediately after, and Rajesh will be one of the 11 people who will appear on the program. I really wanted to make sure that he will be one of the voices reporting to Gandhi on how Gandhi has inspired them. It should be a promising program. Many of you could have been on the program. We just made a choice of only 11 people who come from different backgrounds. But I hope that those of you who are based in India will be able to watch it. Otherwise, maybe we can send a link on YouTube or otherwise. It will be aired on Doordarshan on the 1st of October and on the 2nd of October, which is, as many of you, if not all of you know, the 150th anniversary of the birth of Mahatma Gandhi. The program will be called Bapu Zinda Hai, which means Mahatma lives. Anyway, again, I'm very pleased to welcome all of you for this program, which is, I think, very pertinent and timely dialogue to explore the applications and impacts of Mahatma Gandhi's theories and practices on education and learning, and also their relevance to higher education. Again, the 150th anniversary of his birth is an opportunity for many people around the world to reflect on this, and UNESCO has been actually entrusted at the highest levels by its executive board to organize events in a variety of places. So it's of course very fitting that we have a number of events here in India, and I'm very grateful to Rajesh and his team for this particular dialogue. Pertinent dialogue because there has never been probably a greater need to look at education with a new perspective, one that will question and clarify the fundamental motivations that drive the system and practice of education in order to ensure that education remains relevant to the needs of learners and the changing learning environment. I think it's especially important at this time here in India. You all know that the government is discussing a new education policy, so there are many ramifications here and beyond. It's also timely because there is an ongoing debate at the global level, there again, not just here in India, on how education and learning might need to be rethought in a world of increasing complexity, uncertainty, and precarity. So, responding proactively to the recent call by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, I want to mention to you that UNESCO is actually leading the agenda on the futures of education. Again, there's a lot of efforts that are being made at the global level by our organization, and this is clearly an opportunity for all of us to contribute and help shape this agenda with various contributions and inputs. We actually at UNESCO have I would say, a tradition of regularly revisiting and re-envisioning education at what we believe to be key historical junctures of societal transformation. We believe that this helps to frame the bigger picture questions of the type of society we aspire to create from the perspective, of course, of a common humanity. And Gandhi is probably the one figure, or one of the 2 or 3 figures that best represents our common humanity, and to explore the implication for how we understand and approach education and learning. Just to give you a little bit of historical background, not very much obviously, I want to go back to the first exercise of this kind that UNESCO undertook, which took place in the 1970s and resulted in the so-called FOR report of 1972, which at the time promoted more specifically the concept of learning to be. The next instance, many of you remember, I see Bud is nodding, was in the mid-90s when the Delors Commission came out with its report, which was at the time called Learning the Treasure Within. That report emphasized in particular a more humanistic and integrated approach to the multiple functions of education as a fundamental right and also as a public good. I think that's probably around that time that the notion of public good came into being. And now, under the Futures of Education initiative, UNESCO and all of its partners around the world are currently beginning to explore the concept of learning to become, reflecting on a line of philosophical and social thinking that emphasizes potentials, rejects determinism, and embraces openness to the new. That's a very important aspect I'm sure you will all recognize in your debates at this time where the world seems to be becoming more narrow-minded. More importantly, the initial prospects of this effort acknowledges the challenge that humanity needs to become something it has not yet become. It is a bit like predicting the future, which by no means is an easy task. I'm not sure that anybody has ever succeeded in this area. And in order to successfully do so, we must clearly study the past. That's also one of the propositions of UNESCO as we embark on this effort. Dig deeper into our time-honored traditions and storehouse of accumulated knowledge. Take the opportunity to re-examine the insights shared by thinkers and philosophers over the past centuries and decades, and try to apply them against the current challenges. Again, this is not saying we know everything. It's we need to start anew from scratch. No, obviously we need to look at the past, and that's probably why today's event and many other events that are taking place around the world today is so important. It is an opportunity to cross-country dialogue on Gandhi's holistic vision on higher education, to test its current relevance, because obviously what he wrote and what he said was a long time ago, and to discuss individual and institutional practices that have successfully imbibed Gandhian principles. So among the many insights Gandhi had on education, and I'm sure you're all coming very prepared with a lot of research into what he has said and written, I want to briefly touch upon a few that I, for lack of a better starting point, relate to personally the most. So first is the idea of multilingualism. Gandhi saw learning languages as a way of communicating better with others by understanding people with a deeper sense of compassion and thereby interpreting the world in hopefully wiser, more profound ways. Apart from Gujarati, which was his native language, Gandhi is said to have learned 11 languages, mostly self-taught, and he used his knowledge of languages to communicate with masses across the world. He was probably one of the best living examples of how language learning helps us to improve our leadership skills. Welcome to all the new people. This is rare that we actually start a program early in New Delhi, but anyway. Apart from multilingualism, I also want to mention the idea that emphasizes that education must be skill-oriented, practical, and that lifelong learning takes place not just within the confines of a classroom, but much beyond. This obviously has tremendous implications in ensuring that education and learning should be linked to a vocation that can make people self-reliant, and that not just children, but adults too must continue to learn throughout their lives. You know that lifelong learning is certainly one of the strong principles that UNESCO is talking about as much as possible. It sounds very simple, but it has the potential to also solve partially unemployment and poverty, two of the biggest challenges we still face today. I should mention here that in 2020, our next State of the Education report for India that we've just started producing, I don't know, maybe later if some of you didn't get copies, we can give you copies, but we just started producing in 2019 a State of the Education report for India. It will be an annual effort focusing every year on a different topic. We chose to focus on the education of children with disabilities for 2019. And for 2020, I'm happy to not announce because I've mentioned it before, but let you know here that the report will focus on technical and vocational education and training. The idea will be to highlight the role of skills development and its linkage with employment and entrepreneurship. So, again, just two aspects. I'm sure many of you will highlight other issues, but I also want to finally emphasize that Mahatma Gandhi emphasized the real purpose of value-based education, also an important element, which is not just to gain knowledge, but to use the knowledge to give back to society through service. The ethical, moral, and spiritual dimensions of value-based education, which are easy to tie to Gandhi, ensure that we always put the greater good above self-benefit. This is also probably one of his teachings and one of the lessons that he tried to impart onto all of us. So the ideas that hopefully the innovative practices that are going to come out of the dialogue today, reflections and your recommendations, will hopefully serve as an important input to our Futures of Education initiative. I'm not sure that all of you were familiar with this very new initiative of UNESCO. It is based on the idea that we will need to apply considerable collective intelligence, both to anticipate future scenarios and to develop strategies to address them as well. Dialogues such as the one you're going to be a part of today are certainly great platforms to assimilate our collective intelligence. So I'm very happy in particular, Rajesh, that you succeeded in bringing together colleagues from different countries, different disciplines also, and also students, because they obviously are going to very soon take over, and their voice too is critical in ensuring that we have a balanced view of the future. UNESCO is very keen to associate youth more and more to to all of our efforts, something we have not done very well in the past. And I also want to emphasize one last aspect, which is that we always have a dual approach of gender mainstreaming and gender-specific programming across all of our program areas. This has been a strong area of focus. Certainly here we applied very strongly at UNESCO New Delhi, so that we will always strive for equal participation and gender-balanced inputs. And I certainly hope that this will be achieved with this dialogue today. I'm looking around the room and we're at least in gender balance, almost there. Not quite, but almost. Anyway, I wish you...
Certainly not here on the top.
I was going to say. But I'm sure that will balance out later with a very strong voice of the many women who are in this room. And I want to conclude by wishing you a fruitful day of debate and discussions. I'll try to pop by this afternoon if I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.